The Tasman Sea can look calm, endless blue stretching to the horizon. But far offshore, on a lonely volcanic island, the rocks whisper a different story. Scattered along the cliffs of Lord Howe are boulders the size of houses, perched high above the water. They didn't get there by storms or cyclones. They were thrown inland by a wave so enormous it defies imagination, a megatsunami. Lord Howe Island today is a paradise. Only 400 people live here, surrounded by coral reef, rainforest, and mountains that rise straight from the sea. But thousands of years ago, this place was anything but peaceful. A wall of water, hundreds of meters high, slammed into the island, tearing forests from the slopes, scattering giant coral blocks, and reshaping the coastline. The evidence is carved into the land itself, and it tells the story of one of the largest waves ever to hit Australia. Seen from the air, Lord Howe looks small and fragile, just 11 kilometers long, about 7 miles, with a curved lagoon on one side and 2 volcanic peaks at the southern end. Mount Lidgebird rises 777 meters, about 2,550 feet, while Mount Gower reaches 875 meters, nearly 2,870 feet. Together, they are the last exposed remnants of a long volcanic chain, now mostly drowned beneath the Tasman Sea. The island was born about 7 million years ago, when a hotspot in the Earth's mantle forced magma to the surface. Over time, erosion wore down the volcanic cone, leaving behind jagged cliffs, coral reef, and lush slopes. Lord Howe is only one peak of a vast underwater mountain system called the Lord Howe Rise. Most of it lies beneath the waves, with only a few fragments, like Ball's Pyramid, the world's tallest sea stack at 562 meters, or about 1,844 feet, still standing above sea level. Its isolation makes Lord Howe special. With no large rivers, no major human activity until the 1800s, and a geology that preserves scars for millennia, the island acts as a natural recorder of extreme events, where the Australian mainland is constantly reshaped by tides, storms, and people. Lord Howe keeps its secrets. And in the late 20th century, scientists began uncovering those secrets. The first clues were the boulders, enormous blocks of coral limestone, ripped from the reef and carried uphill, where they still rest today. Some sit more than 100 meters above sea level, about 330 feet. Others are tilted and stacked in patterns called imbrication, all pointing in the same direction, evidence of a single, overwhelming surge of water. Storm waves, even cyclones, can't explain this. The highest storm surges in the Tasman Sea reach around 10 meters, just over 30 feet. These boulders were lifted 10 times higher. The only possible culprit is a megatsunami, one that overran the island and left a permanent signature on its landscape. Normal tsunamis are caused by earthquakes shifting the seafloor, producing waves that travel across oceans. But megatsunamis are different. They're triggered by sudden collapses, volcanic flanks, landslides, or asteroid impacts. Instead of displacing a thin layer of water, they displace the entire column, creating a moving wall that can rise hundreds of meters. Volcanic islands are especially vulnerable. Over time, erosion, heavy rainfall, and earthquakes weaken their slopes. When a massive section finally breaks free and crashes into the sea, millions of tons of water are displaced in seconds. The result isn't a ripple, it's a liquid mountain, racing outward in all directions. Models suggest that a collapse on the flanks of the Lord Howe seamount could have created waves more than 100 meters high, over 330 feet, striking the island within minutes. For anyone standing on shore, there would have been no time to react. The horizon would have bulged, the sea itself rising, before exploding against the cliffs with thunderous force. The evidence left behind tells the story of what happened next. Whole slabs of basalt were quarried from the island's edge and hurled inland. Valleys were stripped bare, leaving smooth rock faces and knife-edged grooves where water chewed into the cliffs. Sediment layers show sudden pulses of sand and gravel deposited far above the reach of storms. In some places, marine deposits have been found more than 120 meters above the sea, nearly 400 feet, proof that the water overtopped entire headlands. To picture it, imagine a wall of water taller than a 30-story building racing toward shore. That's more than 100 meters high, higher than the Statue of Liberty, and towering over the Sydney Harbor Bridge. And it wasn't one clean wave. It was surge after surge, the ocean in motion, carrying boulders, trees, even animals far inland, before rushing back out and tearing everything with it. Lord Howe wasn't the only place hit. Along the New South Wales coast, more than 560 kilometers, or about 348 miles away, scientists have found matching evidence. At Bombo Headland near Kiama, a tsunami overtopped a 40-meter cliff, that's around 130 feet, and dropped sand into a sheltered bay on the far side. Chaotic layers of coarse material mark the spot, a fingerprint of the same event. Taken together, these clues point to a regional disaster. The megatsunami that smashed Lord Howe also struck the mainland, scouring beaches, drowning estuaries, and leaving behind deposits that can still be read today. For Aboriginal communities living along the coast, it would have been catastrophic. Oral traditions preserved by Aboriginal groups tell of the sea rising to swallow the land, or of great floods that wiped out entire camps. Some stories describe the ocean falling from the sky. Others speak of ancestors swept away by waters that never stopped rising. We can't know for sure if these are direct memories of the Lord Howe tsunami, but the echoes are striking. These stories capture the same sense of sudden, unstoppable destruction that the rocks record. For cultures that relied on storytelling to preserve history, it's possible the memory of such a wave endured for centuries. On Lord Howe itself, there is no evidence of permanent human settlement before European discovery in the late 18th century. The island may have been uninhabited when the wave struck, but on the mainland, it would have left scars not only on the landscape, but on the people who survived it. The science leaves little doubt. Storms can't fling multi-ton boulders onto cliffs hundreds of meters above the ocean. Cyclones don't leave marine deposits on mountain ridges. Only a megatsunami explains the scale of destruction. And Lord Howe is not unique. In 1958, a landslide in Alaska's Lituya Bay generated a wave 524 meters high. That's 1,720 feet, the tallest ever recorded. The surge stripped trees nearly half a kilometer up the valley walls, leaving a bare scar still visible today. In Hawaii, submarine landslides have been mapped that displaced enough material to generate waves more than 300 meters high, close to 1,000 feet. These collapses happened tens of thousands of years ago, but the deposits they left behind show how vulnerable volcanic islands can be. Compared to these extremes, Lord Howe's tsunami, reaching up to 120 meters high, about 390 feet, was smaller. But in Australian history, it may have been unmatched. Large enough to scatter coral boulders inland, to overtop cliffs, and to send its force crashing into the mainland. For the east coast of Australia, it was the defining wave of the last 10,000 years. Today, Lord Howe looks peaceful again. Visitors hike to the summit of Mount Gower, snorkel among coral, and watch rare seabirds wheel above the lagoon. It feels timeless, untouched. But scattered through its forests and cliffs are the silent witnesses of catastrophe. Giant boulders, scarred rock faces, and sand layers far above the sea. They remind us that beauty can hide violence, and that nature's calm can be shattered in moments. The unsettling part is that it could happen again. Volcanic islands remain unstable. Landslides are unpredictable, and when they happen, there's almost no warning. A collapse near Lord Howe today would devastate the island instantly and send waves racing toward the Australian mainland. Even after traveling hundreds of kilometers, a tsunami that size could reach New South Wales with dangerous force. Towns, beaches, ports, all would be vulnerable. Unlike cyclones, which give days of notice, a landslide tsunami would strike in hours or less. For Sydney, for Wollongong, for Newcastle, the devastation would be unimaginable. Megatsunamis are rare, but the evidence on Lord Howe proves they are real. This small island in the Tasman Sea carries the scars of one of the largest waves in Australia's history, a reminder of how quickly the ocean can rewrite the land. Lord Howe remains one of the most beautiful places on Earth, but its story is also a warning. Even paradise can turn violent when the sea decides to rise. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more journeys into the world's deadliest seas and most impossible landscapes. And let me know which one you'd like me to cover next. Thank you for watching.